Welcome. You know, the first time we had a salute to Vietnam veterans, some of them came up and said, nobody ever thanked me before for being a Vietnam veteran. Well, tonight we're going to do that. We're fortunate in the Bay Area to be here with the best VAs in the whole system. We got the partnership of UCSF at San Francisco. Palo Alto has Stanford as a partner. And the West Coast, UC San Diego is a partner with the VA San Diego. So we're really blessed to have the best of the best. Veterans Health Research Institute, or NSER as we call it, is a great institution. And John Swenson is advisor to it. And I asked John to be the master of ceremonies because I wanted somebody with credibility, and he has 2 tours in Vietnam, and his bio is in your program. And he's a scholar. He's a professor emeritus at De Anza College, and he takes these tours to Vietnam. And without any further ado, I'd like you to help me welcome, please, John Swenson, Colonel, United States Army, retired.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What an honor always to be with General Myatt and Colonel Starling and the staff here at Marine Memorial Association. I'm very proud to be a member of it and thrilled to be with you tonight as we have an evening commemorating the service of Vietnam veterans. A year ago on this stage, we heard an address from my West Point classmate, Medal of Honor recipient Paul W. Bud Buca. I have no such distinction nor eloquence, but tonight I'm not giving the address, merely serving as the master of ceremonies. So many of us went to Vietnam starting out with the notion that the good war, World War II, that Vietnam would be a repeat of it.
I got back in 1969, and the war and anybody involved with it was very unpopular. So very quickly learned to keep quiet about it rather than start another argument. That went on for 45 years and was practiced in not talking about it. And then a local high school English teacher asked me to talk to her class and share some of the photos. That was the first time anybody had expressed any interest in them. Did that. 2 days later, she hands me a folder with 60 letters from the kids saying, thank you for your service, thank you for sharing the photos. It was like a breath of fresh air.
Before we acknowledge our Vietnam veterans, I understand that we have some members of the Gold Star families who lost fathers or husbands in Vietnam. That brings us 50 years out, or maybe 52 or 54, depending on how you count, to the 3 million soldiers, men and women, who served with great dignity and great courage against battlefield odds and home front odds in another time, in a place far away, our Vietnam veterans. Thank you and welcome home. I am a professor of English at De Anza College in Cupertino, and as General Myatt mentioned, I also serve on the advisory board of the Veterans Health Research Institute. I've also taken students back to Vietnam several times, and we continue that program today. If any of you would like to join us this summer, see me at the reception. It's a wonderful way to go back, okay? You and your wife can go back. We'll even let you room together for no extra charge. And go back with some of the younger students. My wife went as a student. She signed up no credit, so she didn't have to do the papers. But seriously, if you'd like to go to Vietnam with us this summer in the month of July for about 2.5, 3 weeks, please let me know. And we're going to go this year to the American Embassy 4th of July party in Hanoi on the 4th of July. So come and join us. Since I'm an academic, I want to start with a quiz, and I know we have a lot of Marines in the room. The question is, in what year did the Marines first land at Danang, go ashore, and engage in combat? I heard pretty much a consensus on March of '65. Well, that's not quite right. The answer is 1847. I wasn't there. Norman Lloyd was there making videos, but I wasn't there. The USS Constitution, which is still the oldest ship in the Navy, put into Turan, the old name for Danang, and the French consulate came aboard to ask for help because the Vietnamese had captured a bishop and had him in captivity in Hue. A company-sized unit of Marines went to Hue, and they were not successful. We took second place that time. I heard we took second place this time, but that's not true. Show of hands, how many of you were winning when you went home? That's what I thought.
When I got there, it was at the peak. That's when the troop levels hit 500,000. Johnson declined to run for election. Nixon won, and he stated very openly that he was going to wind the war down. So morale started to suffer a little bit because who wants to be the last person killed in a war when you've announced you're leaving? However, in terms of the pictures, just personally, my view was this was hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I wanted to document as much of it as possible.
In his great book, Dispatches, Michael Hare, and if you haven't read this, I have to encourage you to read. We're going to see a lot of books tonight. We got some wonderful authors with us and videographers. But in Dispatches, Michael Hare says that Vietnam was what we had instead of happy childhoods. In January of 1960, I was a 17-year-old private in the Army and an usher at the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy. He said that Americans would go anywhere, pay any price, bear any burden in defense of freedom. I did not realize he meant he would send me to Vietnam. But that's what happened to my first assignment after I graduated from West Point in '65. I served 2 tours in Vietnam. I spent '66 with the 25th Infantry Division in Cu Chi as an infantry platoon leader and later as a staff officer. In '68, '69, I returned and served in the headquarters in Saigon and did a lot of travel across the entire country, including many trips to Danang to visit our Marines. There was another young lieutenant, a Marine, who arrived before I did. Although we did not know each other, our tours overlapped. As a platoon leader with the 1st Battalion, 4th Marine Regiment, his unit was ambushed and fought for 2 days. For that battle, then Lieutenant Myatt was awarded the Silver Star, the nation's 3rd highest award for valor. He later returned to Vietnam for a second tour as an advisor to the 5th Battalion Vietnamese Marine Corps. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with V and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry with Palm. General Myatt provided leadership in Vietnam and in Desert Shield and Desert Storm when he commanded the 1st Marine Division, which defeated 7 Iraqi divisions in zone, seized Kuwaiti International Airport, liberated Kuwait City. General Mike, you learned the lessons of Vietnam well and kept your losses very low by applying those lessons that you learned in Vietnam. There are many, many Marines alive today because of your Vietnam experiences and your subsequent superb leadership. General Myatt assumed duties as president of Marine Memorial Association on 10 September 2001, one day before the world changed. Let us recognize our host and great warrior, Major General Mike Myatt. Tonight we are privileged to have a November 2015 film done by our brothers at KWTX Television in Central Texas, featuring several Vietnam veterans and headlined by noted war correspondent and lifetime member of Marine Memorial Association, Joe Galloway, who has spoken from this podium often. Joe Galloway was a young reporter covering the Battle of LZ X-Ray with the 1st Cavalry Division in the Adrang Valley in November of 1965. His seminal book about his experiences, We Were Soldiers Once and Young, and the movie was, of course, Mel Gibson's We Were Soldiers. In the documentary today, you will see that Joe is wearing the Bronze Star. He is one of very few civilians awarded an Army Medal for heroism as a civilian, rescuing soldiers during the Battle of LZ X-Ray. The movie we will see tonight, Why We Can't Forget Vietnam, is a cautionary tale. and you may find it uncomfortable to watch. It may bring back bad memories, but as Vietnam veterans, we are watching it together. Why we can't forget Vietnam. It's always a thrill to see Joe Galloway and to listen to him and to learn so much from him. I was somewhat troubled by the negative experiences of some of the veterans in the movie. Most of us returned home, rebuilt our lives. Most of you have. It is true that PTS is still a problem for many of us, and veterans are still suffering, as the movie makes clear. Bud Buca, my Medal of Honor classmate, has a simple message. Bud Buca, suffers from post-traumatic stress, and I got treatment at the VA. As General Myatt mentioned earlier in the Make the Connection, we have wonderful VA facilities here in San Francisco, and if you need assistance, I encourage you to contact them. The movie also exemplifies the political divisions surrounding the war, the press, the anti-war protesters, whom Joe labels as irrelevant. I must say that as a teacher of the war, I do not share the attacks on the press enumerated in the film. We have a very distinguished member of the press with us here tonight, Norman Lloyd, cameraman, producer, director, whose coverage of wars started in Vietnam and Cambodia and went all the way through Iraq, and his great works, Shakey's Hill and MIAs on Tiger Mountain, which you were given a copy of tonight. Norman Lloyd, we thank you for your service. We thank you for the video, and we look forward to seeing you a little bit later in the program. So many veterans in this room have dedicated their lives to the memory of the conflict and have made the world a better place because of their Vietnam service. Starting with several used books and the support of his wife, Paula, Paul DeSillis built a 3,000-volume library, the DeSillis Vietnam Conflict Collection at De Anza College, which we will reopen again next month and encourage you to visit. Another such veteran, a soldier, a writer, and a photographer, Stephen Burchick, wrote a wonderful memoir, Compass and a Camera, which won the silver medal at the 2015 Independent Publishers Book Awards, known as the IPPY. Stephen, who's with us tonight, noted at the award ceremony, Vietnam veterans were often ignored and sometimes vilified because of their participation in America's most unpopular war. It took me more than 45 years to come to terms with the personal impact of that experience, and finally, with the encouragement of some very special people, write down the daily account of my year in Vietnam. The medal, the IPPY, is dedicated to all servicemen and women who fought there and to continue to live with the impact of that experience today. I also owe a special thanks to my wife, Christina, who supported me while I was overseas, who saved all of my letters, and who served as the editor who made this book worthy of a medal. And so I would now like to turn to the ladies in the audience, without whose support we wouldn't be here. You provided Steve the support while he was fighting in Vietnam with the 1st Infantry Division. You sent the Kool-Aid, deviled ham, film, socks, and many letters of support and encouragement, and marriage plans. In short, your role was far more supportive than just the things that Steve carried. Another Vietnam spouse is in the audience tonight who actually wrote a part of her husband's book. Of course, her husband was Naval Academy, so I'm not surprised he needed assistance. Pam Donspur, the wife of Don Spur, wrote in part 2 of Don's Vietnam memoirs, and she's talking about, and it's an interesting chapter because she and Don alternate the writing about their R&R in Hawaii. Pam says, we supported them by believing what they believed. We supported them by looking for jobs, writing letters, making reel-to-reel voice tapes, sending care packages, and preparing for R&R. We were the patriotic, the righteous, and the dutiful, and you certainly were. Would the spouses of Vietnam veterans please stand and be recognized? Ladies. Thank you, Christina, Pam, Paula, Susan, Wendy Lee, and all of the ladies. As I noted, we are honored also by the presence of Colonel Don Bonspur, who, like General Myatt, served as a Marine platoon leader and then an advisor to the Vietnamese Marines. His 2 books, Vietnam Memoirs Part 1 and 2, are highly recommended. One reviewer wrote, "These books are not glorified stories about combat. Rather, they are the author's best recollection of the day-to-day reality of working and living as a platoon leader and later as an advisor with an elite unit of the Vietnamese military forces." Don, do you have your books with you? Could you just hold them up? We're going to all go upstairs in a minute, okay? And Stephen Burchick will be there in the Heritage Room with his book, Compass and a Camera. Don will have his books. Norman Lloyd will have his videos. And we will all see you in the Heritage Room with your books and films. We'll also be treated to a grand reception in the Commandant's Room, so enjoy the food. But also, please visit with the authors. In conclusion, I want to leave you with the words heard in the film from two of my dear friends, Joe Galloway and the late and wonderful Captain B.T. Collins, both of whom have enriched our lives mightily. B.T. was Jerry Brown's chief of staff, a right-wing hawk for a left-wing governor. I got to tell you, he called me on the phone one day, and he said, "Mr. Swenson, this is B.T. Collins in Sacramento." He said, "I read in the Mercury News you're having that liberal Pete McCloskey come to your Vietnam class. And if you're having that liberal, I want equal time with your students." And I'm thinking, wait a minute, Pete McCloskey won the Navy Cross in Korea. He did run as an anti-war candidate against a sitting president from his own party, Richard Nixon, which took a lot of courage, but I never quite saw Pete McCloskey as a liberal. But that was my introduction to BT. Then he said, "Let me tell you who I am." I said, "I know exactly who you are. Which Tuesday night do you want to come?" And he came every quarter until 2 days before he died. I called him and I said, "BT, I have good news and bad news." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "The good news is you've been selected as De Anza's graduation speaker this year." And he said, "Okay, I'll be there. What's the bad news?" I said, "There were students from De Anza Students Against War on the selection committee, but they want you to come anyhow." He was also the chairman of the California Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Sacramento, raising $3 million after the movie Platoon came out. In our movie tonight, Joe quoted BT as follows: "No whining, no crying. We are the fortunate one who survived when so many better men," and BT would want me to add, "and women." We lost 8 military women whose names appear on the Vietnam Wall. We lost 55 civilian women, a figure that's not often known, a lot of them in baby lift, but the women were a major part of the Vietnam conflict. As continuing, BT said, "We owe them an obligation to live every day to its fullest potential, to make this world a better place for our having lived and their having died." In the beautiful prologue to We Were Soldiers Once and Young, Galloway notes, "We rebuilt our lives, found jobs or professions, married, raised families, and waited patiently for America to come to its senses. As the years passed, we searched each other out and found that the half-remembered pride of service was shared by those who had shared everything else with us. With them, and only with them, could we talk about what we had really happened over there, what we had seen, what we had done, what we had survived. And that is what we're doing tonight. Thank you, Stephen Burchick, Don Bonspur, Norman Lloyd, General Myatt, Colonel Starling, and the staff of Marine Memorial Association for holding this wonderful Vietnam evening for our Vietnam veterans.
I want to thank you all and Colonel John for being the MC tonight and tying it all together. You know, Norman Lloyd, he was a young photographer from Australia. He found himself with the 1st Cav Division when we invaded May 7th, 1970 in Cambodia. And they were assigned a mission. He had to put down his camera and pick up an M16. And he's bonded with him, and he's more soldier than most soldiers I know of. For Norman Lloyd, combat correspondent, you're quite a guy. And these videos that he's made, these wonderful videos, the Shakey's Hill and MIAs on Tiger Mountain, they're award winners, and they're really worth watching. I met Don many years ago But Don, come over here. Your books are really quite something. Stephen Burchick, I tell you, your photos are really something else. You really, as a Vietnam veteran and all, you really pulled it together and say something for those photos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
John Swenson, Colonel John, I want to tell you, I still say very few people support veterans like he does. And I just think it's wonderful what you do.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
My only recommendation is if you know a Vietnam era vet, encourage them to join some group and talk to some other people.